All right, so let's talk about another use for this tool, and that is using it as an inclinometer. That gives us a lot of information. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this nail and turn it around for sake of purpose. And I've got a loop tied with a bowl line in just a piece of bank line. And I'm going to place it in here just like this. And then I'm going to just hang a pin off of a knot right there to give me a weighted object. And what that's going to do is it's going to move this string on a scale. And you can see how that moves when this thing's tilted like this. Now what I can do is I can aim up this board, up the line of this board, just like a compass, and I have an inclinometer that will give me degrees. Because I know this is 90, and I know this is 45 right here. I've got it marked as 45 on this side, but it's 45 here as well. All right, and that 45 degree angle is important for things like judging the height of a tree. If I were going to cut down a tree or something and I wanted to make sure that it was going to fall into an open area or possibly not hit my camp or possibly make it to the other side of something, I can back off of that tree until I have a 45 degree angle that I am away from that tree and create that 45 degree angle with this inclinometer, step it off, and I am as far away from that tree plus my body height as it is tall. Okay, so I can also use this inclinometer to estimate time of day, local apparent time, and daylight hours left. And really all I need to know for that is I need to know about what time the sun comes up and goes down. And situational awareness of my environment before I leave for a trip tells me that. I know that right now this time of year, the sun comes up to where I can see it and it's shining at about 8 o'clock. And by 5 o'clock, it's pretty much going away. So if I take this inclinometer and I point it at the sun and I just line this 90 degree line across the center up of that nail with the sun, and then I trap this string on the board and I pull it down, it's showing about 45 degrees, right at 45 degrees difference from 90 to here. 1, 2, 3 marks, 45 degrees. If I know the sun came up at 8, that's 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. So it's not quite what I would call local apparent noon. The sun is not quite as high in the sky as it's going to get today. And if I were doing a shadow board or something like that, I would be able to see that very plainly. But I can infer that just from how high the sun is above the horizon and understanding what time it comes up and what time it goes down. That also tells me how many daylight hours are left, because if the sun's been up and it's 11 o'clock and I know local apparent time around 5 o'clock it's gone, then I've got about 6 more hours of daylight that I can travel if I have to. If I need a couple hours to set up my camp, then I got 4 hours of daylight to travel. All of those things can be figured out very easily with this tool as well. Okay, let's talk about using this to box an object if we were pace counting for distance and we have to go around an obstacle and we want to pace count that, or pick up the same line of travel on the other side. The first thing we would do is one of two things. We would pick an object on the other side that we can see and that we know we're going to be able to find, or we would take a reading, get our compass in a certain spot, let's just say 90 for this instance. We would turn 90 degrees, and that moves the dial 90 degrees on our shadow board. We would walk until we have passed the danger area, counting our paces. And that's just so we can get back where we started. It doesn't add really to our distance as far as pace counting and dead reckoning. Then we would turn 90 degrees again and count our paces forward to get past the obstacle. Then we would turn back 90 degrees the other direction and walk back the same amount of paces we did when we started to box the object, and that would put us back on the same line of travel again. And we can verify that with this board easy enough, as long as it didn't take us over an hour to go around. And if it did, we can infer it like we have been doing before, and you'll still be fairly accurate. So now we can use this also to box an object. All right, so here's the next thing that we can use this tool for. We can use this tool to figure out the distance across an obstacle. So if we want to figure out how far it is across a stream or something like that, maybe we're going to fell a tree. Maybe we want to know what the distance is because we know we can only swim so far. All those types of things for the distance across something can be measured fairly easy with this device. And for easy sake of purpose, I'll show you this in the south so that we can all see things. If the object, what we would do is we would walk up in front of the object that's a danger area. We would pick an object on the other side of that danger area and point our compass rosette at that object and look at where our shadow lines up on the compass. And it really doesn't matter where it lines up as long as we know where it's at when we start. Then we will turn to one side or the other and we'll walk away from or linear to that object. As we go, we can turn around and point the compass back, point the compass rosette, the north side, the front of the compass, whatever you want to call it, back at that object. Once we have a shadow difference here of 45 degrees, we have walked the same distance linear from that object as it is across that object. And all we have to do is count paces back and we know how far it is across. And we would check that both directions if we possibly could, just to get an average. There are lots and lots of things we can do with this other than just looking at a shadow. This is much more complicated and much more diverse than just, I can look at my shadow on the ground and get the same thing. This gives you much more. And the more you understand this, the better you'll understand your modern compass and its capabilities. Well guys, I hope that didn't confuse you too much on this simple shadow board. It is a very multifunctional tool. It's a lot more than we talked about in the first video with a simple direction finding board. This thing will do a lot for you if you understand its capabilities. And I hope I didn't go too far too fast. I talked about other concepts like boxing objects and estimating distance and height and things like that. That are all things I've discussed in other videos. So sometimes I assume that people see all of my videos for sake of not making a lot of redundant information within a single video. But if you don't understand boxing objects or pace counting or estimating height and things like that, you can look at my past videos for that information. But I wanted you to understand all the things this tool is capable of, because when I make a simplistic video, I get a lot of people saying, well, I can do that with the shadow of myself on the ground or a tree. You're right, you can, and so can I. But all these other things that this thing will do, and the finite bearing that you can pick with a tool like this, makes it different than just a shadow board or a shadow stick. And again, this Pathfinder shadow board is a concept that I've been working on for a couple weeks. I've immersed myself in this primitive navigation and the different techniques of doing it. We're going to go back to the board that we tracked the sun's arc on as well on a sunny day, but I wanted to make a second part on this board because I think this is a very basic and simple tool that anyone can learn. It's a very good training object, would be fantastic for scouts, and for an emergency situation is 100 times more accurate and 100 times easier to use than a shadow stick, an Audemars compass, or any of those types of things. This is quick, down and dirty, and it's fairly accurate, and it's multifunctional. I appreciate you joining for this video. I thank you for everything you do for me, for my school, for my family, for all of our sponsors, instructors, affiliates, and friends. I'll be back with another video as soon as I can, guys. Thanks.